All right, we're up to Ois Ches over here. And he's explaining, he brought the example from the Malachim, that it's Dafke, the Malachim of the lower levels of Bria, of Yetzira and Asiya. The Chayis, the Fane HaKodesh, that they make a lot of noise like Rash, Godil, because they can't comprehend. And like about Teshuvah, who comes from the other side, so the light becomes much more powerful. You're pulling with much more force because of the fact that you're coming from darkness, and Yisrein Ha'oir is Metoich HaChoshech. And he said, and that's the level of Sidus also with a shin, which is the level of Shar. He'll continue to explain about what takes place by a Yid, that when a Yid unravels the halachas by studying Torah, and he unravels and he figures out how to fit things in that they should be all in place, that's called like combing your hair. Hairs are halachas, tilim of halachas, and by combing them and separating them, then you're getting the level of Cyrus and also level of Shar. Let's look inside. Ches. So the parable of this, it's what we say, kivutsoisov talim. So kivutsoisov, his bangs, are talim. Talim means like piles. And the Medrash Rabbah on the Pasuk in Shir Hashirim says, Elu tilei tilim shel halachas. Those are piles and piles, mountains and mountains of halachas. What happens is the pasuk says, "Shal yidei silsul hasidus." When you comb the hair, lahafri the halachas, to separate the halachas shelo yisteru zeh, so that they don't contradict one another. Hine, so over there the pasuk says, "Salsala usroi memeko." You comb it, you separate it, and then it will raise you. Shahanefesh misroimem al yidei zeh, by working hard, studying Torah, separating the halachas, usroi memeko, the nefesh gets elevated, raised through this, libechinas sareishe kamar nikei, to the level of the hair of his head is like clean wool. This is talking about in the vision that he saw Hashem, and it says his hair was like clean wool, but that's a very high level, in the level of Sar, that it raises the nefesh to the level of Sar Reishe Kamar Nikei. Ukameshekasu Melukotim b'dibura maschil ki bayoim hazeh yechaper habeis, the second mimer. So notwithstanding the high level that the Torah gives you, but it all remains in the level of Sar, a limited level of Chayis. Umekol mokoim kol zehu b'chinas Cyrus levad. All this level of the silsul hasidus, the combing of the hair and the elevation, is all in the level of only hair, as he said before, that the hair has a very limited chayis, goes through the skull, and has a very minute and limited chayis, and therefore you can cut it even. So that level, even though the level of Torah, it's still considered only a hair. Why? The Raisa mechokma nafkis. Torah comes from chokma. The ha'oras ha'tainug bechokma. And how does tainug shine into chokma, which is the source of Torah? Who al yidei mazolis v'sairis, it is through mazel and cyrus. And the Abba Yoinek Mimazel Haches, the 13 attributes of mercy, they're called mazolis. And the level of Abba, which is the level of Chokmah, nurtures his Yoinek from the 8th mazel. So when you start Kel Racham V'chan Erech Hapayim, Rav Chesed V'emes, Noitzer. The word Noitzer is the 8th mazel over there. This is all a level of sar when it's with a sin, which is a here. Avol shar biyamin. When we have the right shin on the right hand side, did that? Kushar rochav. Then it's a wide gate, not sar to the left, which is a here, which is a minute amount of chayes, but in a shar is more than a door. It's a gate. It's a big opening. That is similar to the idea of anoni bamerchov yudke. That when you say that you call out to Hashem in a level in which you are sort of pressed, and then you say min hameitzar korosi yudke. You call out to Hashem from a level of meitzar, a level of restricted, a very little minute, a level of cyrus, and then you get a response higher than cyrus. You get the response by merchav yudke, in a wide way of yudke. Bechinas merchav ha'atzmi de'in soif, in the level of the widen of the essence of the Ein Sof. V'hainu al yidei min hameitzar korosi, through from the level of meitzar that you call out, al yidei zeh anoni b'merchav yudke, the response you get from Hashem is through the level of merchav yudke. So while you call Hashem from the meitzar, from the level of Cyrus, from the level of Chochma, Nafkis, which gets from the level of Cyrus, from the Tainug of above, but the response you get is a level of Merchav Atzmi. And likewise, is in the level of the noise that comes Mihalom is Dadvorim Hagashmim, from the obscurity, the physical items that obscure, that block. When you do with them a mitzvah, with the gashmis, the matters. Kimoi tzitzis b'tzemer hagashmi, tzitzis with physical wool, utfilin b'klaf hagashmi, and tefillin with physical parchment. Shofar b'keren shel ayil hagashmi, the shofar with the horn of the physical ram. Sukkah b'schach gashmi, the sukkah with physical schach. Daled minim shebelulav, the 4 species of the lulav b'tzmach and gashmi, physical vegetations and growth. So you have all mitzvahs, tzitzis and tefillin and shofar, they're all done physical, the sukkah and the 4 species, everything with physicality. Hine, so through the limitation and the performance of the mitzvahs with gashmis, with physical matter, becomes a rash, a lot of noise that it brings about. Hine rechava mitzvah schome oid. Your mitzvah becomes very wide, which means shenasim kelim l'rechavim, Rechava mitzvascha. Your mitzvah is wide that me'oid, it can get the level of very much the level of merchava atzmi, lekabel v'chinas me'oid ha'elyin habli gvul, to receive the supreme level of me'oid, the very much, which is unlimited. Okemoi kain, another overcoming, overcome a feeling that you feel, just like we're talking about Gashmi, is that the overcoming the fact that these are physicalities that bring down, it's an obscurity, it's Gashmi that brings down the mitzvahs that are performed. The same thing is in the feeling of the person overcoming that feeling that it is the physical matters that sustain him, and thinking that there is some participation of all the business and the work that the person does, as if to say that they are helping him in his livelihood, when in truth it's only Hashem. And likewise, al yidei shlilas hashituv, by rejecting the participation, the hainu, that is, gam bihiyois askus advorim hagashmi, even as he is preoccupied in the physical matters, he does not give them any credence. He doesn't give them any importance. Because he is devoted, given only to godliness. So through that, he makes that Yisrael oir advantage of light. And the example for that would be, is the actual vision of the person. The vision of the person does not come from the white of the eye, rather it comes from the dark, the black of the eye. Just like a person does not see from the white of the eye, but rather from the black of the eye. Likewise, the advantage of light, when do you see the real light? It's not when things are easy, it's not when things are white and open, but it's that it's davke from darkness that you get to see. That through the work, the service now, so the future, there will be the revelation of the essence of the Ein Sof. Blessed be He. You're gonna get that merchava atzmi. You're gonna get that higher level, the level of bligvud, level of Ein Sof. This is what the Medrash Rabbah said. Avol osid ani levadi. In the future, it will be just I, ani levadi. So we can say, what does that mean? That is similar to what we say, Atohu Hashem levadecha. The level of who Hashem is levadecha. That's the level of who, where Hashem is alone, bechinas who, v'havaya, that's the level of he, and havaya, who, havaya, this is like who you're alone. What does that mean? The idea that we're saying, ani levadi, is who levadecha. Well, inyan hu, the idea is that yidei birurei hatoyhu levad, that through sorting out toyu, levad sheyoshim b'chinas oires de toyu. Besides the fact that you inherit, you receive the lights of Toyu, because you're mevarer the birum of Toyu. Nimshach gam kein mebechinas atzmus ein sof shelamaylo mebechinas Toyu v'tikkun. You get it drawn down also from the level of the essence of Ein Sof, which is even higher than the level of Toyu v'tikkun. Not only do you get the level of Toyu, which is the Hamshocha of the Oiris, the Toyu, which are the source of the Gashmias, which block, and you overcome them, so you get the level of Toyu, but you get the level of Atzmus Ein Sof, which is higher than Toyu Tikkun. Shalibinyan hatoyu hoyo almenas lister, because the building of Toyu was originally, it was on the intent to destroy. To begin with, Toyu was built so that you can make the Shviras HaKelim. But Ushviras HaToiru hoyu almanas livnes. But the reason of the breaking of the vessel, breaking of Toyu, was in order to rebuild. Baal Kain, and therefore al yidei habirur de tikkun, through the sorting out of tikkun, the rebuilding of Toyu, nimshach b'bchinas Ein Sof shelamaylo metoyu v'tikkun. So then you draw down from the level of Ein Sof, which is higher than Toyu v'tikkun, because that was the whole intent for Toyu v'tikkun. The Beshoyre Shorishen Hu Bechinas Levadecho, in the first root, all the way in the beginning, that's a level of Levadecho. And therefore in the future will be Ani Levadi, I alone, that level of Hu Levadecho. This is also the idea quoted before. Ani hu ve'ein elikim imodi. I am him. There's no elikim with me. And we translate it, the leis shutofa imi. There's no partnership with me. We're talking about the level, the hainu bechinas yochid. That is the level of only, not one, but only. Bechinas chad v'lo b'chushbon. That's like the level of one, but not in a counting. It's not 1, 2, 3, but it's one, it's only. But how do we get to that highest level, to the level of Yochid? And there should be ein elikim imodi, only, no tzimtzum, no lowering, but getting the highest level, the level of Yochid. By rejecting the concept of partnership, of participation, that anything partilamato, that's way also in the future, there will also be the revelation of Yochid. There will be only. This is what we quoted before from the Chazal, that you made me one unique in the world, because you said Hashem Echad. What does it mean? You said Hashem Echad lahoitzi inyan avodah zara shezehu pirid legamri. So that excludes the idea of avodah zara, which is totally separation from Hashem, ulohoitzi gam inyan hashituf, and also not to have the idea of participation, of input, of anything else helping out. Vahainu, the ein elikim imodi, through that you don't, there is no elikim with me. It's just Hashem echod. Ulamatahu. So how is it translated below? Shelo yachshev shadvorim hagashmim. He should not consider the physical matters, hey mokir parnosa, that they are a source of parnosa. Zo pirud legamri chas v'sholom, because that would be totally separation. So that would be, if you really consider that the physicality becomes a source of parnosa, but it's even more than that. Ach gam zois, also this, not only that it's not your parnosa, but also shelo yachshav oisom l'shum dover klal. You don't consider it to be anything at all. Not only it's not what gives you parnosa, but it is just not considered at all. How does a person know that he's really not considering the physicality, doesn't take up any place, he's not giving it any credence, is who that is when things are equated, that yes and no are equal. And that means yeah and no have exactly the same. That means that the Gashmi is the physicality don't mean anything to you, and that's why yet to do it and not to do it is both the same. Yes and no are equal. That means that you reject any participation. And that way, you make the Eibishter Chativa Achas. So the Eibishter says that he makes you two, one Chativa. Lemata Bechinas Antuchad, the level of Antuchad, you are one. Now, Me'ato Tzorich Lehavin HaPirush. Now we need to understand what is the meaning. He starts Oistes. Ein Kayotze Boy. He says, Echod, there is nobody like you. How could it even go up to the heart of man? That there is something similar to him, so that we need to say there's nobody like him. How would we even think that there's someone like him? Well, Inyan Hu, the idea is the Hine Kisiv. The pasuk says, "Ve'atahu u'shneisecha lo yitomo." You are he, and your years don't end. In other words, your years are endless. Seems to be a paradox here, and also not understood. It's not understood. Ma shayich loymar legabe maila u'shneisecha. How does it apply to say, when we talk with regards to above, Ushnoisecho, we're saying to Hashem, your years, Shezo Zman Ugvul, years are time and boundaries. How could we say to Hashem, time, years, but the blessed Creator has no limitation? So that's number one. What does it b'chlal mean? Ushnoi secha, years. How could there be years with regards to Hashem? V'gam, and also mahu inyan ushnoi secha lo yutamu. What does it mean? Your years don't end. Shehem soisrim ze'ezeh. That seems to be a contradiction. If there is years, that means there is limitations. Then it can't be, doesn't end, because that's finite. A year, and then you're saying that it doesn't end. But Rashba Zal Tiritz, and the Rashba, a blessed memory, he answered, the liyois the Adam Bal Gevul, Eine Masik as Bilti Bal Gevul, because a person who is limited, he is finite, cannot grasp what is not limited, what is not a balgavul, as bilti balgavul. She'ein lo yitzir klal be'inyan bilti balgavul. We don't have any imagination. There's no shape in us to explain in our head what is balti bilti bagvul, not being limited. We cannot imagine anything. We cannot shape anything that without putting it in space and without putting it in time. So yoser mizeh, even more than that, so we don't have any imagination, no shape to understand what is it unlimited. This is the Rashba answering. That's what the pasuk says. Your years. The person knows what years are. Then he says they don't end. That the years don't end. It is in that way. That's the way we are able to explain it to a person, so that this idea should be making a little bit sense in his mind. So basically, we're saying his endless years is because we can only associate with years which are finite. And when we say they don't end, that's sort of to explain to us what would mean infinite. And that would be al derech l'shabed es oizen. We say a lot of times things to break in the ear so that the ear can comprehend. To talk, as we say, the various components of a human body that we use towards Hashem. We want to say Hashem sees, Hashem hears. We'll use the eyes and the ears, even though they are not applicable above. Ukemoi Einei Hashem, as we say, the eyes of Hashem, or we say Oznei Hashem, the ears of Hashem, or like the pasuk says, Tihino Oznecho Kasheves Veinecho Psuchos Goimer. May your ears be listening and your eyes be open. So basically, he answers that Shnesecha is just so that we can understand. And then we say, Lo Yitomu, they don't end because we want to try to apply over there the idea of Likvo. But the Rebbe says that's the answer of the Rashba. But in the style, on the path of Chassidus, we'll understand it differently. We know that time is in the level of Malchus. So in Atzilus itself, above the level, the Sfiras HaMalchus, the last Sfira, there is no time. Time begins with Malchus. Malchus kol elamim. You are the king of all worlds, which means all space. And your dominance is bechol der v'der, is across is all time. The avar hoive ve'osit. So we're saying in every generation, which means past, future, and present, that's in Malchus. Malchus, the Ovar, Hoiva, the Osid, past, present, and future, Shayich, Bebechinas, Malchus. That applies by the sphere of Malchus. We say Melech, he kings, Moloch king in the past, and Yimlech will king in the future. And this level of Malchus is when we talk about that we say Yoimei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Elef Shana. That what's the day of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is 1,000 years. The Hine, because in the levels of also in Malchus over there, it's the Zman is in measured by thousands. In the Yechidis, Asiris, Meyos, you have single digits, you have 10 digits, the digits of 10, and then you have 100 digits. Hein bibia, those are Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. In Asiya, we have the single digits. In Yitzira, we have the tenths. And in Bria, you have the hundreds. But Va'alofim ba'atzilus. But the thousands is in Atzilus. But we're in Atzilus in Malchus. Behind Ubichinas Malchus, that's in the level of Malchus. Over there is man. Malchus. But higher than Malchus, lo yesh bechinas hazman, it doesn't exist the level of time. And still, while there is no time higher than Malchus, we cannot say also, we can't say that doesn't have a root and a source for the idea for the level of time. Because time means limitations. And we say that Hashem functions not only in infinite, but also in finite, which is time, which is limitation. Because the light of the infinite is kishem sheyesh lekoyach bebilti balgavul, just as he has the power in non-limitation, he also has power within limitation. What is that power that we attribute to Hashem in limitation, in the Gavul? That is the Kelim of Atzilus. V'hainu, B'chinas HaKelim, the Eser Spheres of Atzilus. The 10 vessels of the 10 spheres of Atzilus, Shezeu HaGavul HaNimtza B'menu Tchila. That's the limitation, the boundaries that have been brought about first. Those are the first level. They're the shoydish of Zaman. They're the shoydish of limit. They're the beginning of limitation. V'hu Shem Shakai. That's the name of Shin Daled Yud. The name of Shaddai Shebishor Hu B'chinas Rishimu. In its root, that is the level of the Rishimu. That after it says the oil was pushed to the side, there was a mark left. That mark that was left, that is the Rishimu, that's the Koyach HaGavul, the Zehu Koyach HaGavul Shebe'ein Sof. That becomes the power of limitation, which is in the infinite. And that is the root and the source of the Kelim of Atzilus. As written elsewhere, and the Maimer that explains their Divayitzavim in the Tov Kuf Samach Zayin. Avol Shem Havaya. So that is Yoimoy Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Elef Shana, that also has in Malchus, and there's also a shoydish of it in the Kelim of Atzilus. But when we talk about the name of Havaya, who Hoya Hoyve V'yeh Ke'echad. Havaya was, is, and will be at once. It's not limited. It's not in time. The Hainu, B'chinas Oid Ein Sof HaBli. That is the infinite light with no limitation. Umitzad Shem Havaya. So from the perspective of the name of Havaya, they would be Ein Sof until the Eibishter had to say, no, stop, die, Shaddai. That's why we have the name Shaddai, says the world limited. So from the Shem Havaya, the world would have been Ein Sof Mamish. Ba'yidei Shem Shaddai, through the name Shaddai, Sha'omar La'ilamai, he said the world, enough. Ushanasa Oilomes Bebechinas Betzias Ugvul. That made it into a entity and limitation. It's not legal. And still we say Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach in Hashem Yimlech. Now we're saying that Hashem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is higher than the level of Zman, but then we're saying Malach, Melech, and Yimlech. Hashem king is king and will king. The Bebchinas Hagbola, the Ha'avar Ha'avar, that means that in the level of the limitation of past, present, and future, Meir Bazeh B'chinas Eirin Sof, in there it shines the level of the Ein Sof, which has no limit. And therefore, his Habus. So we have the level of Blikvul shining into the level of Gvul. His Habus Shemibchinas Malchus Hibchinas Blikvul. Even though it creates limitation, but it creates an unlimited amount of limitation. So that is the infusion, the investment from Hashem Melech, from the Blikvul into the Gvul. Even though the created beings are limited, but yet there's an unlimited amount of creative. There should have been a limitation in their existence. And still, they're still unlimited. As for example, there is so much inanimate stuff. There's so much growing stuff, which is ilones, vasabim, trees and grass, or petis, and fruits, or tvu and grain. There's actually without any measure at all. It looks like unlimited. That is because of the level of the infinite, which is not limited, that shines in Malchus. So now what we're saying, of course we don't have to say nothing can compare to Hashem, but nothing can compare, meaning that you can have this combination of Blikvul with Gvul. That is the connection of two opposite, Blikvul Gvul. This is similar to the idea where it says, Nimnu hanimnois b'chei kabodah. In the lap of the Creator, in Hashem's ability, He is preventable from preventables, meaning there's nothing, you can have contradiction, and yet the contradiction, that too is not something which Hashem can't do. Within the inability, we cannot say that Hashem cannot do anything, even when it's directly a conflict. Ubemes Eine came, and true is, it's not so. Elonimnu, there are those of the ones who investigate, those who studied the philosophy, they say, sheyesh limnois tevakayim. There is an existing nature which is something which you cannot change. It's impossible. It is nimna. You are prevented because of the laws of nature. Say, for example, you can't be riding and not riding at the same time. They say that this is something which is prevented even in the lap of the Creator, even in Hashem's abilities. He cannot have writing and not writing at the same time because there is a conflict over there. But that's not true. It's not the truth. But he is preventable from preventables, which means there's nothing that holds him back. He can be writing and not writing. Although in our understanding, we don't understand how could that possibly be. But on the roim bechush, gvul ubligvul ke'echad beribu hanivroim, and we see actually in vividly we see the gvul ubligvul, we see limit and unlimited together. Beribu hanivroim, the fact that there's so much the multiplicity of creation of beings, adin shir v'adin ketz mamish, to no measure and no end. Actually, notwithstanding that they're limited. So from this we understand that it's within the power of the Ein Sof that there should be both. It can be both opposites. We can have writing and not writing. So mean there's nothing like Hashem to have unlimited together with the limited, and they go together. So you have a creation of world, which is limitation, and that, he says, comes from the level of Malchus, which is rooted in the Kalim of the Esesphiris of Atzilus, which comes from the level of Rishimu. But from that infuses within the level of creation the idea of the Ein Sof, so that all the growing things will encapsulate the Bligvul into the Gevul. And that is something which is Echad and Ein Kayetze Bo. Okay, so let's leave this over here for today.